which is for a $200,000 grant for the wastewater treatment system that's getting on in age and has some necessary upgrades coming at us. The first step will help a lot when combined with a grant that expires November 30th, tomorrow. That's why it's time sensitive, for your consideration. The process was delayed due to the request of zero spending earlier in the year to complete the issues that the DOR insisted on. Now that we're almost out of those woods and getting back to the new normal of municipal accounting, this opportunity is available to us now. There are two articles. The first one is for the grant, while the second one is part of the new accounting that, if passed, we need to be able to process the accountability of the transaction. The temptation to get a few other issues on any special town meeting agenda is very real, and it can certainly make the operation of our town go easier or faster at times. Yet it seems more prudent and trusting to hold those for our annual town meeting, where most town members are available to attend and consider the ideas. So always be understanding, but also constantly aware that it's way too easy for someone to try to get something passed that might not get approved at annual. These are things I've watched for in the 18 years I've been doing this. One other thing is I did want to introduce the newest member on the Finance Committee, Diane Brzezowski, a great addition to a very capable board that has helped steer us through a very difficult time. So thank you to all of you. Okay. All right. Mr. Jaworski.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Jaworski.
I move we take up Article 1.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded to take up Article 1 is in your handout.
I move that the town appropriate the sum of $480,000 for the purpose of funding the town's wastewater treatment plant gravity thickener conversion project, and to meet an appropriation to authorize the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, to borrow the sum of $480,000 pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, 7 and 8, or any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town thereof, provided that any premium received by the town upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less any such premium applied to the payment of the cost of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 20, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount to carry out the purpose of the article, and further to authorize the town to enter into any contracts accepting state reimbursement for any such project cost in accordance with the GAP grant funding for energy efficiency and clean energy projects.
And this article is recommended by the Finance Committee. Is there any discussion? Michael?
Good evening, everyone. Mike Cahill, North Street. I certainly understand the reason for this article and wholly support what we're about to do tonight in terms of approving the borrowing so that we could be eligible for this grant. But I was just wondering if I remember when DPC made a presentation to the Selectmen and the Finance Committee a while back. DPC is the engineering firm that has been looking at the sewage treatment plant, rather. And they had also shared and conveyed that there were other items that would need to be replaced in the sewage treatment plant at some point in the future. So I was just wondering if someone here could kind of put that, or could recall that conversation and put it put this $480,000 in perspective of their presentation that evening.
So Dave Prickett with DPC Engineering. We are essentially at the point where the Select Board and Finance and staff will begin discussing the draft capital plan. It's safe to say that your treatment plant, built in 1982, most mechanical equipment has a life expectancy of 20 years. So it's fair to assume that there are going to be some level of significant capital needs at the treatment plant beyond this initial project over the next 10 to 15 years. The extent of those and the opportunities for other grants, larger grants, to reduce net cost to the town really haven't been explored and discussed as a group at that level yet. The reason that this particular element was advanced early is the new funding opportunity emerged. This represented the piece of the upgrades that would have the highest return on investment for the Hatfield residents, and thus we took a stab or crack at the grant earlier this year, and that's kind of where we're at this evening.
Is there any other discussion?
William Belden, Pantry Road. My question is, a lot of us are on septic systems, and we get absolutely no use out of this plant. If I have my tank pumped, it has to be shipped out of town. Hatfield will not accept the wastewater from my septic system. And I wonder why, and we go looking for, like we were trying to expand the sewer on Route 5, I believe, right? We were looking to expand, yet you won't take the sewage from our septic systems, and yet you want us to support this. I'd like to have that clarified, please.
When do you want to talk on that? Go ahead. Oh, got his mic.
I'm not sure I can address the entire thing, but, so I also live on Pantry Road, as you know, and also have a septic system. And so I can say, when we required the pumping to go to the Hatfield treatment plant, when we required the pumping to go to the Hatfield treatment plant, the people who pump your septic system actually charged you a surcharge for that, because Hatfield charged more than other places, and because we required you to have it dumped at the Hatfield sewage treatment plant, they had to make it a special trip over there to do that, rather than combining it with other things and taking it somewhere else. So that's not a requirement anymore. And my memory of the, maybe Phil can address the reason why we don't want to take it anymore, but because it was an expense issue, right, or equipment wear issue?
Dave was involved when we had non-compliance from DEP about the plant, and he can explain why we had to cease operations there.
So about 2.5 years ago, Hatfield received a notice of noncompliance from Mass DEP related to poor effluent quality being discharged to the river. It was directly attributable to the high solids load associated with septage that was being dumped at the treatment plant. Septage is just a really concentrated, high load kind of shock on the biological system at the plant. And because of that, the town would have had to invest major capital to upgrade the treatment plant to continue to receive septage, and it was just an economic formula that didn't make sense relative to the tipping fees associated with the septage. So one of the conditions or agreements with DEP and the town of Hatfield at that time was to cease acceptance of septage at your treatment plant.
Is there any other discussion? Okay. Oh, go ahead. It's okay.
Hi, I'm Christy Boudreau. I'm on Main Street. Couple really quick ones. Is the grant a sure thing?
Yes.
Yes. And I just heard you say something about the life expectancy of mechanical stuff is about 20 years. Is that the case with this piece of equipment that you're recommending?
Yeah, typically the mechanical elements of the proposed project, in this case the motors and things, would last about 20 years. Some of the more permanent features of the steel and attachments to the concrete typically have a life expectancy of 30 to 50 years.
Okay, so by my quick math, it looked like this pays for itself in 8.5 years, and it's going to have a 20-year life expectancy. Okay, and are there any impacts to town staffing regarding the changes?
Phil? Is there any changes to town staffing with this?
There are no changes. It'll allow the operators to focus more attention on other proactive preventative maintenance needs.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, it sounded nice out back. We were talking for a few minutes, and that gentleman was pointing out that Hatfield's one of the few towns that to do what we do with our pollution system and only having 2 employees is pretty unique. So they do I know Ken Hoyt, you're over there, and you guys do a pretty damn good job. Thank you. Any other questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Motion carries. Article 2.
Mr. Moderator?
Ms. Doty.
Mr. Moderator, move to take up Article 2.
Motion's been made and seconded to take up Article 2 is in your handout.
I move that the town amend the short-term interest and issuance line item of the fiscal year 2019 operating budget by increasing the same in the amount of $13,680, and further, that the town raise and appropriate from tax levy the said sum to carry out the purpose of this article.
Seconded. Is there any discussion? Michael?
I'd like to ask our town treasurer what interest rate is associated with this, number one. Number two, this is the first year interest cost on the, or between now and the end of June, I guess, interest cost on the $480,000 total, right? So at some point, that principal would be reduced by the grant. And so we're looking at, is this the first year of a 20-year borrowing, or can you just explain that, Edwina?
Yes, the borrowing would be for 10 years.
10.
The first year, we'd be paying interest on the $480,000. The project should last or be complete by 9 months. Within that 9-month period, we'll get the payback just as soon as we submit all the information that's required. So instantly, the loan would be reduced by the $200,000, and interest would be calculated against $280,000. I can't give you an interest rate because we don't know until we go out to look for a loan, to have the bid. So we're
You must have assumed an interest rate to come up with this.
yes. The best, the interest was calculated on the best rate, or the average rate that is out there in the market right now.
Any other questions? All those in favor of Article 2 signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Article carries. Please remember and mark your calendars for our annual town meeting, always held on the second Tuesday of May, starting at 7 o'clock at Smith Academy Gym. So come a little early, because a lot of people like to chat and catch up with each other, and the desk has to log you in. And may you all have a very calm and pleasant holiday season. Thank you for coming. I declare this meeting dissolved.